You were like Robin Hood, the way you were robbing these hoods. This story and development recap isn't a riff on a solo dev, but rather their publisher. So if this recap sounds harsh at times, it's more so directed at Devolver, who I've loved up until now. That being said, I'm just standing here with the 9 other Sludge Life players who didn't think Sludge Life was worth $15. I'm not joking about there being 9 other Sludge Life players, by the way. OpenCritic, which is Epic Games' official site for reviews, doesn't have enough user reviews to officially give it a score. At least things are better on Steam. It still costs $15 though. Ew. I bring this up because Sludge Life was free on Epic Games for over a month when Epic was just getting renowned for selling free games, with Sludge Life being one of the handful released in this first couple years of the golden era. It was on Epic's front page. Those who came to Epic every month just for free games downloaded it. And then no one played it. And I mean hundreds of thousands of people had to download it. Not only was it during Epic's golden era, but this was one of the free games released between these heavy hitters. I'll just let you look over this screenshot and you get to see what this small indie dev was up against. I would like to congratulate Sludge Life's solo dev, Terry Velman, for being chosen by Epic Games to follow up one of the best-selling games of all time.
What's up? Can I come over your crib? Man, fuck you. I'll see you at work.
Naturally, Sludge Life was swept under the rug. So much so that some first-party sites didn't even have Sludge Life on their list of free Epic games. But for a second, just imagine you're Terry Velman. You could technically say you went up against one of the best-selling games of all time. Terry Velman had a couple of well-received games, Heavy Bullets especially so. This was when he was up and coming. Devolver themselves were also on the up and up. These games were relatively well priced. Keep that in mind for later. Sludge Life, however, is in this super rare 5-star gacha pull of Limbo. It is well received, but not well received enough. Few have heard of it, tons have downloaded it, most know nothing of it. I'm delving into the publication and reception more than the actual game lore because I find the news surrounding it, or the lack thereof, so much more fascinating. Also, the in-game lore doesn't offer much, since this is more of a free-roam platformer game, but I'll give a fair crack at it. We wake up in a cozy shipping container. Judging by the empty soda cans, laptop setup, and food containers, we've been here for some time. On the floor, we find a news article that a mascot has been crushed by a statue. Leaving the comfort of our shipping container home, we find signs everywhere saying to strike. Office buildings nearby have been abandoned. One of the first people we meet is a graffiti artist, a tagger, by the name of Mosca. With only a couple sentences, he shows us how to tag a spot. He also calls us by our tag name, Ghost. He kindly asks us to join him in spray painting this building. All NPC's dialogues are this short, usually 1 or 2 sentences, either giving the player information or cracking a joke here and there. What makes this game unique is every NPC has a joke to say.
You're not quite as white as I thought, Ghost.
To quote an excerpt from the game's page, it's just people trying to make the best of an industrial dystopia. And I think that's pretty accurate. Even though the dialogue is short, it at least gives us some clues as to who we are. Our name is Ghost, a bum graffiti artist who's been on this island long enough to know and be known by other artists. The game's page doesn't discreetly say whether we came to this island to tag or we were already living here. I would have said we were living here to begin with, but Ghost's name and goal implies something else. We learn from other NPCs that Ghost intends on becoming a renowned tagger. So perhaps he came to the island in the shipping container to tag this place. Ghost's origins is a mystery I don't think we can answer just yet. What we also learn from NPCs is that this is an industrial state with a major corporation, Glug, controlling it. With NPC's dialogue being limited to 1 or 2 sentences, there isn't much to extrapolate in terms of story here. I'll briefly go over what I found interesting, and more importantly, what carries over to the second game. There's a duo of taggers by the name of Double. They're the most prolific tagger on the island, and what makes them unique is their hatred for Ghost.
It was a sad day when you slithered out of the abortion bucket, Ghost.
Most other graffiti artists have a respect for Ghost because he doesn't spray over others' tags or claim territory with big sprays like Double does. Here's an example in real life of a ginormous tag, taking up more space than it should. Yeah, it's impressive, but it might take away space from other artists. Our character, Ghost, tags for the thrill of the art and the parkour, the camaraderie of graffiti artists. One of the duo dislikes Ghost because he's essentially taking space that Double can use. The other of the duo dislikes Ghost because he's unimpressive, even cracking jokes about why he's called Ghost. Some see right through him, or people don't notice him at all. What I like about Double is once you've gained their respect through more tagging, they befriend Ghost, eventually reinvigorating their love for the art and parkour rather than just tagging for the sake of territory. Not too far from the basketball court where we find Double is a frog SoundCloud rapper by the name of Big Mud. He lives in a shipping container like us, which adds to the credence that Ghost might have already been living here. Like some of the graffiti artists, Big Mud respects Ghost, so much so that he gives away some of his music for free. By this point, the player will have noticed the huge fuck off Glug tower with protesters in front of it. They're protesting the death of Siggy, the town's cigarette mascot. Ghost can't be bothered and graffitis over the statue that killed Siggy. Glug Tower is one of the very rare multiple path parts of the game. Most platforming puzzles are pretty straightforward, but Glug Tower has several points of entry, all of which feel satisfying to discover. You can see the fence doesn't wrap all the way around, and you can strafe jump into the tower. You can sneak in the back, and there's even a trash chute near the bottom. At the top of the tower, you can see a flying car, probably the only way off this polluted island. Ghost has no way of getting to the flying car for now, so we'll just leave the way we came. We find another tagger nearby, also living in a shipping container. He's not just any tagger, he claims to be the old god of tagging, which is strange because we don't see any of his tags anywhere on the island. He goes by the name King Eyes, which is a play on the graffiti term king, used endearingly for well-known graffiti artists.
I'm on the toilet doing tricks.
To prove he used to be one of the greatest taggers, he offers us his physical eyes. They instinctively look in the direction of the nearest tag spot. Designated tag spots. Yeah, this game is strict on where you can spray as opposed to being freeform and spraying anywhere. So the graffiti gameplay is more like Jet Set Radio than D-Blob. Here's some other games for reference. In a game about graffiti, I'm disappointed we don't have the option to spray wherever we want. Back to King Eyes, he gives us an omen that we might end up like him, obsessed with tagging to the point where it becomes hurtful vandalism. With King Eyes being blind, this puts him in the trope of blind guy who can see the future. Ghost will only ever discover King Eyes' actual tags or his graffiti in endgame spots. Maybe he foresaw these endings. We get away from this crackhead and move on to another crackhead. Uzi is a goblin dead set on tagging for the sake of vandalism. Not only that, but he says this place will eventually burn to the ground, not just referring to Glug HQ, but the whole island. That pretty much sums up his dialogue. By this point, Ghost will have met goblins, bird people, talking cats, cyclops, frog people, bug people, British people, and it really makes the game feel like you're in a graffiti world. So one weed brownie point for that. The last overarching story tidbit is in the corner of the map. On my way there, I wandered out into the sludge and found funny little Easter eggs here and there, but no collectibles, which is kind of disappointing. Collectibles, for reference, are edible banana slugs, which, believe it or not, do exist in real life, but aren't actually edible, and the other collectible is cigarettes. And yes, Ghost can smoke the cigarettes. We finally get to the corner of the map, and by this point we've collected 80 out of 100 designated tag spots, and we're able to get more dialogue out of taggers. The only one that really adds to the story is this guy here in the corner, T. T corroborates King Eye's story and says that they used to roll together. He eventually confirms that King Eyes went mad, vandalizing every tag spot known to Glug Island. That was years ago, and King Eye's tags have been long washed away. By this point, Ghost has picked up some movement tools that allow them to reach spots we couldn't before. Next to T is an abandoned research facility, which can now be accessed with some of the tools we have. It would be a hot spot for tagging if it wasn't for the radiation of Glug's experiments. There's only one resident on the island and he's pretty irradiated. Going through some tight gaps, crouching all the way, we get to the bottom of the uranium facility, only to find a nuke. King Eye's last tag is here too. Considering his tag is a pair of eyes, it makes me wonder if he sees through his tags, always watching the player throughout the game. That's pretty much the bad ending. After unleashing the sun on the local populace, the player can choose to revert the save or start over. For the weird ending, Ghost can go back to Glug headquarters, and if Ghost collects all 100 designated tag spots, we find that King Eyes has vanished, but his blindfold remains. Ghost can put it on, remove his own eyes through a trippy dream sequence, and become the new King Eyes. I would consider this another bad ending, considering Ghost went insane and started doing this for the vandalism rather than the enjoyment in art. Not to mention he scoops his eyes out. For the good ending, Ghost scales up Glug Tower using the new movement tools we have to reach the flying car. We're able to get a last glimpse at all the tag spots, as well as a giant middle finger, so that way the Glug CEO would see it flying on his way out. Ghost is happy the tagger sprayed the final send-off, as he flies off the island. And that's it for Sludge Life 1, the first game. Although the game was only about 2 to 3 hours to get most of the tags, it's a pretty good experience for a free game. My only critique is the player isn't able to really color the world, and thus everything feels less impactful. Here's what the game looks like. You'll have 1 or 2 tags there, but I would like to coat these walls. There are some cool sections like that, but this only happens twice or thrice throughout the entire game. Like, I think it would have been a lot better if Ghost could have gone wild and we had more structures completely covered in art, similar to D-Blob, but with graffiti instead of flat colors. Sure, this nullifies the subtle themes of graffiti being vandalism and thus a bad act in the games, but the game already focuses on platforming and comedy, so why not go crazy? Go stupid. And for some of the tags, maybe even let the player create their own. Either way, still a fun, free experience. Let's see what the next game in the series has to offer. Fuck. Sludge Life 2 is pretty much Sludge Life 1, but continues the short story. The maximum amount of tags in the small world is the same. The items are the same, maybe 1 or 2 additions that don't really change much. The tags still follow the same style. There are only a small handful of new characters, only one of which plays a part in the main quest. The old characters are here too, which is cool to see the short story continue, but it just feels like I'm playing Sludge Life 1 again. You can give kids cigarettes now, so that's cool. The game starts off with Ghost in a high-rise condo. The place has been trashed after a banger party last night. We find one character who tells us that Big Mud, the SoundCloud rapper, is nowhere to be seen after the party, and that our crew has to record a new hit song today. So right off the bat, we have some stuff to extrapolate here. Ghost, after escaping the first island, found a newer and fancier place to stay than a fucking shipping container. Ghost is now part of Big Mud's entourage. That, or he's some sort of manager or supervisor position for the band. Or he's Big Mud's handler. I don't want to believe that, but considering Big Mud is a druggie, anything's possible. We also learn from the game's cover that Ghost has been traveling. So now I'm leaning more on the side of Ghost being a graffiti vagabond, rather than someone who stays in one place. Ghost learns from more of the NPCs that the band works for Glug Corporation now. The people liked Big Mud's music and Ghost's art so much that the corporation couldn't deny their appeal. As the old saying goes, have I not eliminated my enemy by making them my friend? We'll eventually come to see that Glug took this approach to some of our former colleagues as well. As opposed to the first game, we don't own the respect of most of the artists anymore, considering that we sold out to Glug. The only way to redeem ourselves is to tag up this island and find Big Mud. An interesting start to the game is that we have to descend our way down from the high rise rather than go up. We made our way to the top of the first game, and now we're going back down to our roots. Back to Sludge. All this while collecting more tags and finding out what happened since the first game. Similar to my recap of Sludge Life 1, I'm just going to cover what matters to the short story. Inside Ghost's condo, we find King Eyes' Vandalize Again, this time with a note that reads, Remember. Despite all of the characters from Sludge Life 1 returning to this game, King Eyes is absent, completely vanished like he did at the end of the first. Ghost finds the glider item early on in the game, which makes traversal so much easier. It greatly helps him reach the bottom of the high rise. There we find Double, but there's only one of them? They go by Dolo now, which is double but solo?
How is that bucket treating ya?
She berates us, saying we should have never taken Glug's contract like her sister did. She understands everyone needs money, but would rather work elsewhere and keep graffiti as her hobby than work. We find her sister in a building nearby, and sure enough, the duo have split up. One half now does advertising for Glug while the other fights against it. Double describes her vandal sister as a toy, which is a graffiti term for someone inexperienced or foolish. She describes us that way too, saying it must be nice to never grow up. Double wants to buy a glass eye with the crazy money Glug is paying her. This fills in some context as to why Ghost took the contract too. We learn we're not really the best band manager, as Glug's intentions for the advertising and music is to appeal to children and get them addicted to their products. Now would be a good time to mention the soundtrack. It's what I can only describe as urban mixed with swamp vibes. Tracks that have a lot of what Doseone is known for. Trap beats, expertly mixed with whatever the game is about. For example, in Enter the Gungeon, Doseone mixed funky electric beats with regal music. This poses a challenge for Sludge Life, as it's already in an urban setting, so how does Doseone already mix funky beats with city beats? Well, the concrete jungle and Sludge Life give the game a very swampy feel, as well as all the animal characters. So we have heavily reverbed electric beats mixed with bass to give an almost aquatic background to urban songs. And sometimes there are songs that are just straight funky. As per usual, Doseone knocks the album out of the park. The tracks Ghost Phones Home, Mosca's Theme, and Ghost Whips the CEO Ship are some of my personal favorites. It's a shame you'll only ever hear the music when you're standing near the uncommon radios. Back to the story. Ghost keeps looking for Big Mud. Maybe he was arrested for all the drugs he took, but we checked the Klopp station and there's only Uzi? After we had left the island, Uzi was the one who armed the nuke and blew up the old island. We can even find the old statue that killed Siggy blown all the way here. We can even spray on it again. We'll break out Uzi after finding Big Mud. Big Mud might not be too far. With the island being relatively small, Ghost eventually stumbles into the mob hideout where Big Mud bought his Lucifer lettuce. Their leader is aptly named Grandma. Grandma threatens us for coming into the hideout, but she would rather have Big Mud taken off her hands at this point. She orders Ghost to go into the freezer where Big Mud's cooling down. Big Mud is alive and hungover. He apologizes to us for everything that's happened, and promises us he'll meet us back at the studio. We leave the hideout scot-free, and on our way, overhear that Grandma intends on breaking her relative out of prison. We pay this no mind as we get back to the studio and record the final song. Before I play that standard ending, I'll briefly cover the other two endings. You can get the bad ending by collecting a gas mask from one of Glug's research labs and finding an item called the Necroshroom. We then venture far out into the sludge. If you venture around enough, you'll find a cult worshipping the sludge itself. The sludge talks back, wanting us to feed it the Necroshroom as a form of worship. We oblige and the sludge consumes us. We get to play a Katamari Damacy minigame where we slowly suck up the entire island, effectively destroying it, very similar to the nuke ending of the first game. As for the weird ending, you could actually call this one a positive. After collecting all 100 tags, Grandma frees Uzi, and we storm Glug's high-rise, destroying a huge jewel in the center of the building, and everyone taking a piece. Everyone gets rich, and we all live happily ever after. Finally, back to the normal good ending, the one where only Ghost and Big Mud are rich. We record the final music video. And that's the game. It hurts me to say this, but this is one of those albums that comes with a free game type of games. That's not true because you don't own Doseone's album, unless you actually buy that separately. That would bump this game's total price tag to more than $30. I think to make this game worth the money, the album should have been included with the game. Great music, everything else was lacking for the money in the 2-3 hours. Even if you did spend more time and get all the tags. Sure, there are more minigames and photography side quests if you want to 100% the game, but even then I don't think that warrants the investment. It sounds like I'm being harsh on a solo dev, but I think the game could be easily worth $15 and then some. The only thing you have to add is more art. On the bright side, it is the most straightforward thing to add in game development. You don't have to learn new code since you've already shown structures covered in art. You don't need to code more dialogue or short stories, you just gotta whip out your sketchbook and go wild. And maybe one day the player can too. Even though I and the players on Epic weren't invested, I am deeply invested in what Terry Veltman makes next. He's made some banger games in the past, so check him out. Don't let my recap of Sludge Life hold you back. Another positive note is that the game actually inspired me to try graffiti for myself. That design is shit, but that was pretty fun.